from Vareen. Let's listen to his question.
Hi Jason, my name is Varin. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and my startup is Property ML, where we're focused on delivering the most accurate property valuation model using AI. My question to you is centered around startups outside of the US. And what I wanted to ask you was, generally speaking, do you find that startups outside the US are rushing too fast to get to the US instead of taking advantage of the local market that they're familiar with? Or on the flip side, are you finding that they actually aren't showing enough urgency to get to the US and to unlock that large market, which would be much larger than the one they operate in? Thanks, Jason.
All right, great question. So one of the amazing advantages that founders in Australia, Canada, Ireland, and let's call them the smaller, under 100 million people, under 50 million, in fact. In your case, 25 million people live in Australia, I believe. Ireland is, 5 or 10 million? Canada's 25, 30 million. One of the great advantages you have is you can build an English language app. Let's say you were going to build Robinhood, the trading app. I happen to be lucky enough to be an angel investor in that one. I'm not sure if I was the third or the fourth, but let's put that aside for a second. And you wanted to launch Robinhood. You wanted to try free trading. Well, how different are people in Canada than the US, Ireland, than Canada, Australia, New Zealand? These markets are generally going to behave similar. They're not exact, but you can grow in stealth. So what many companies do is when they want to make a big change, like a big company, like Facebook, they will test that change in Australia because people in America can't see the Australian App Store and they're not allowed to download those apps. So it's a great way to A/B test. So your question is, how do I time that? Well, if you think you have a killer idea and you want to go stealthy and you don't want the press to know about it, the American press, they're under-resourced. They're not getting a burner phone from Canada and going into the Canadian App Store. They might, some savvy ones, use something like a VPN to look at websites from different regions and see if there's some differences. So I think if it's all about learning your customer and what kind of investors you want. So let's break that into two parts. If you want American investors, you're going to need to be able to prove that you can address the largest markets in the world. And Americans are very self-absorbed and know their market. So we happen to have a lot of investors here in America. On the investor front, building it in Australia and then sharing those results with an American investor and saying, shh, don't tell anybody, but we figured it out in Australia. Look at the engagement. We have this AI product. Look at what real estate executives are saying about our product in Australia. It doesn't exist in America, and we're going to bring it there, and you get a first shot at it. That's kind of a cool little stealthy way to do it. And after Canva, who was on the podcast, and Atlassian, people are looking to Australia and saying there are great investments to be had. So I think that's the strategy you want to play. You figure it out there. Then you approach American investors when you're at that. For this American investor who has the launch accelerator, I'd like to know when you hit 5 to 10K a month, even Australian dollars. That's fine with me. They're still dollars.